The 3:30 p.m. meeting of the Bakersfield City Council is now in session.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 3:30 regular City Council meeting of May 27th, 2026. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Core. Councilmember Arias. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Weir.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
I'm here.
Councilmember Coman.
Here.
And Councilmember Bashir Tosh.
Thank you. In keeping with Council's resolution, the public statements portion is divided into two periods. There's a period for items listed on the meeting agenda and items not on the meeting agenda. Statements for items listed on this afternoon agenda are given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total per agenda item. Statements regarding items not listed on the agenda are also given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, give them to the clerk, who will give copies to the council. If you're here to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and give your completed card to the city clerk. We ask that you mark whether you're here to speak on an item listed on this afternoon's agenda or in a matter not on the agenda. Speakers who do not identify a specific agenda item will be presumed speakers for the non-agenda portion. Those speakers will be called during the non-agenda portion of the meeting. Everyone in attendance is expected to adhere to the rules of decorum established by resolution of the City Council. Failure to abide by the city's rules of decorum, including any disruptive behavior that interferes with our ability to have an orderly and efficient meeting, prevents the City Council from conducting the business of the city. Consider this a first warning to everyone in attendance that conduct that disrupts this meeting may result in expulsion and or the chambers being cleared. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items not listed on the agenda? Thank you.
Mayor Go, we've received one speaker card regarding items not listed on tonight's agenda. The first public speaker is Olivia Nazerson.
Thank you. And for the record, Councilmember Bashir Tosh entered at 3:32. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hello. Hello. Dear councillors, I respectfully ask Mr. Clegg to respond to my questions before any vote is taken regarding the proposed sewage rate increase. Mr. Clegg, is there any specific reasons the city has failed or refused to fully respond to my prior request to full disclosure financial information data submitted on May 12, 2025, on March 26, 2026, as outlined in my formal protest to the sewage rate increase, and has not yet complied with my California Public Records Act request submitted on May 15, 2026, requesting detailed financial records for financial years 2015 through 2025, the due date was yesterday. These records are essential for public transparency and taxpayers' ability to independently evaluate the necessity and proportionality of the proposed rate increase. On May 13, Mr. Clegg claimed the budget deficit to justify the sewage rate increase. However, publicly available financial information for fiscal year 23-24 indicates a surplus of $111 million in available funds. This raises substantial questions regarding whether the sufficient financial grounds exist to justify the increase. Moreover, the public has not been provided with the underlying detailed financial statements, supporting documentation, or independent verification of the figures presented. The taxpayers have no meaningful ability to determine whether the number presented accurately reflects the city's actual financial condition. Accordingly, I respectfully request that Council postpone any final vote on proposed sewage rate increase until the city provides complete, full disclosure of the requested financial statements, sewer enterprise fund records, cost breakdowns, and supporting documentation for the year 215 through 225, so that the members of the Council and public may properly determine whether a genuine budget deficit exists and whether the proposed increase is justified, reasonable, and proportional. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please. Or additional speakers for this.
That was our final speaker for non-agenda public statements,
Thank you.
Mayor. Our next speakers list, we have received 5 speaker cards for agenda item 4A. And the first public speaker is Lamar Brandysky.
Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. My name is Lamar Curly Brandysky. I've lived at 2801 20th Street for 38 years, and I'm a very proud member of Westchester neighborhood. And I'm here to address your proposed ordinance for the short-term rentals that have become more and more problematic in our neighborhood. Once I knew you were going to have this ordinance, I started investigating, and I don't know if you were able to get my document that shows 30 residences that have are being used as short-term residentials, both through Airbnb and VBRO. I personally have one catty corner from me, and I want to say the owner is very professional. It's a beautiful home. It's well maintained. I haven't had any problems. But I know other homes like that do not have that instance that I do. And I just want to say that Westchester, where your son and daughter-in-law live, it's a very special neighborhood, and we love it. And it's special because it's a quiet residential neighborhood. It is not supposed to have businesses. People have regularly tried to open up businesses there, whether it's an entertainment venue or something else. And that's not what it's for. You know, it's built for homes, it's built for families, it's built to have children playing in the streets. And that's what we want. And I'm just concerned that more and more of the houses are being bought and converted. We have one neighbor here, across her street are Airbnbs. She doesn't have neighbors. And then another neighbor who, the 2 houses on her block are Airbnbs now. And it's becoming like a Disneyland that people love the look and they want to be there briefly, and then they're gone. At night, we don't have neighbors. There's not people we know. And it's that type of turning it into a business when it's a very limited neighborhood of homes. And as more and more of them become Airbnbs, the neighborhood identity is being lost. And I just hope that when this comes to voting in front of a fuller house, that you're not going to table this, and that you're not going to let people water it down. In fact, I think it needs to be stricter. I did notice anywhere in your
Mr.
proposed...
Brandysky, your time is up.
Okay.
So would you bring your comments to a close? The clerk did provide copies of your email and the photographs to the council. So thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Deborah Newman.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deborah Newman, and I reside at 2201 B Street on the corner of 22nd and B Street. I've owned my home since February the 26th of 2019. I came back to Bakersfield after a roughly 8-year absence, wanting to live downtown. I came here originally as a 20-year-old nursing student at Cal State Bakersfield when it was a brand new program, and I always wanted to have a home downtown. I have a lovely place. I've worked very hard at making it even more pretty. Sunk an awful lot of my own savings into it, and I'm that person who has 2 Airbnbs directly across the street from me. Neither one of them look nice anymore, and I would like to go ahead and submit these documents. These are 99 calls for service from one residence only since August of 2023 up until about the end of April, and there have been subsequent calls for service to the police department. For disturbances on that property, restraining orders that are being broken through, and what have you. We all feel very threatened by it, intimidated by the one resident who shouldn't be there. And I can't repeat everything that Lamar had said. I think you all understand that we are very protective of downtown. Mr. Gonzalez had that lovely lighting project. I wish we could have moved it out further across all of downtown. It's very pretty. But I don't feel safe with the Airbnb situation. I understand there's a third one over on C Street that's not surfacing. It's too many. Again, it's a neighborhood. I have neighbors like Rod Munoz, who's wonderful. I have the new neurosurgeon, Dr. Savage, and his family next door. I feel so fortunate to have them as neighbors, but nobody else is really. Everyone else is kind of busy. We do know who we are, but I can't count on these people across the street. I have medical issues, And, you know, if I had some kind of a problem in the front yard, I would hope that one of my neighbors would be able to help me address my concerns. I do not view Airbnb people as my neighbors. They are guests in a hotel. It would be like me going to the Padre and introducing myself to everybody who's staying there. I don't view them as neighbors. And I know my time is up at this point, but thank you for listening to me. And do what you got to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newman. You're welcome. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Veronica White.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Veronica White, and I live downtown near the Racquet Club and Franklin School. Our family has been in the same neighborhood, the same house for over 50 years. Our children played with children in the neighborhood, and we made lasting relationships. The house next door just recently sold. The person who bought it told me initially that she was fixing it up to make it an Airbnb, a short-term rental. We knew the person next to that house. He just recently moved and has made his house into a bustling Airbnb. We feel that there are motels and hotels galore to accommodate short-term visits. What makes a neighborhood desirable? I thought about that. It's relationships. You have a chance to build relationships. And also a sense of community. Community where you belong. Something bigger than yourself. I feel short-term rentals, people going and coming, significantly distract from a neighborhood, a community.
Thank you, Ms. White. Next speaker, please.
Donna Wilmot.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Donna Wilmot, and I have lived in the downtown area since 1978. I live right across the street from a set of 8 lovely one-bedroom bungalows that, as you can imagine, have had many renters over the years. Some I have known by name, some to just wave when I saw them, and a few just by the cars they drove. However, short-term rentals are very different and very detrimental to a neighborhood. There are houses and converted garages that no one lives in. Whoever bought these and rents them seems to want to be in a beautiful, friendly neighborhood, but not part of that neighborhood. At this point in time, my area has a block where one house is a short-term rental, and the one next to it is being upgraded to a short-term rental, which leaves one house on that side of the block who actually has someone living there. That isn't safe. There is no way a neighborhood watch can even work because one just doesn't know if someone should be there or shouldn't be there. Short-term rentals also contribute to the housing shortage. No one actually lives in them. If I had a choice, I would say they should not be allowed. But if they are allowed, they should be supervised and regulated like the hotel motels they really are. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Wilmot. Next speaker, please.
Abdel Dahlia.
Welcome. Please
Yeah.
introduce yourself.
Abdelhamid Dahlia. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm a local ER physician. I actually have 2 Airbnbs myself, and I'm kind of proud of the Airbnbs that I maintain. I do understand the concerns that they've addressed, and I think I do really support that there should be reasonable regulations, permitting requirements, and standards that ensure that short-term rentals are operated responsible. Good operators should be accountable for their neighbors and to their community. But I do think that a lot of the issues that are addressed for short-term rentals are overstated. In Bakersfield, there's roughly 500 short-term rentals. and that's in a city of 420,000 people. So the impact that it's having on the community, while I think is still initially overstated, but I think we do need to be aware of it for the time coming in the future. As far as I don't need to say what the impact of short-term rentals onto the community is. It does help with tourism. It helps with the economy. We do help maintain these homes. The houses that I purchased, there were houses that were run down. Nobody was living in them. We ended up cleaning up the house, really making it a part of the neighborhood that's now clean, safe. There was riffraff that would stay there. And now there's a house that's actually occupied, even if it is with a short-term rental. So I think that there's some stability that does help the city of Bakersfield as a result of this presence. I think that we should look at future regulations to be evidence-based, balanced, and address the actual concerns that we can measurable, quantifiably. I do agree that there needs to be regulations, permitting, and maybe some areas to maybe safeguard that these don't get out of hand and that there's standards and practices going forward. But again, I do think some of it's a little overstated. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Madam Clerk, are there any other speakers for this portion?
Mayor Go, that was our final speaker.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Reports item 4A, presentation of Chapter 17.74 zoning, enacting regulations for short-term rentals. The presentation will summarize the operating zoning regulations, the revenue and permit fee structure, and its enforcement. A staff memorandum was provided regarding this item, transmitting correspondence received.
Thank you. Mr. Clegg.
Mayor and Council, our Deputy City Attorney, Ms. Guillardo King, will provide this presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Honorable Mayor, council members, my name is Vidi King. I'm a Deputy City Attorney with the City Attorney's Office. Both myself and Development Services Director Phil Burns will be presenting to you today the short-term rental ordinance. Just to give you a brief outline on today's presentation, I will be going over just a committee history recap as it pertains to short-term rentals, also known as STRs. We will also cover just an overview of the ordinance generally, and I will be seeking a motion to receive and file the report. As a reminder, the first reading of the ordinance is in your agenda packet today at the 5:15 meeting. So in terms of the STR ordinance and actually the history of the STR topic, the topic itself dates back to about 6 years. In March of 2020, Councilmember Gonzalez made a referral to the Planning and Development Committee for staff to look into the possibility of preparing an STR ordinance. And so in May of that same year, staff gave an STR presentation to the committee. And at the time, the committee was split. There were committee members that were for regulating STRs. There were members that were against it. And ultimately, the item was deferred to a later meeting where we could have a full committee present and also where we were not at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. So fast forward a couple years later, in February of 2024, staff gave a refresher on the STR presentation to the committee. By then, we had new committee members, Vice Mayor Corr and Councilmember Smith. Vice Mayor Corr and Councilmember Smith at the time asked the City Attorney's Office to prepare a red line ordinance, and Councilmember Freeman voted no on that item. So about a year and a half later, again, we keep giving presentation on the STR ordinance. When finally, in February of this year, our office prepares a STR ordinance that is now being presented to council for their review. And at that time, Vice Mayor Corr and Councilmember Smith asked that the item be referred to both the Planning Commission and to the City Council for approval. And Councilmember Coleman voted no on moving forward with the ordinance. So what does our Muni Code currently state in terms of short-term rentals? Well, our Muni Code has a permissive zoning code, which essentially means that unless the use is specifically identified in our zoning code, it's prohibited. And so since short-term rentals are not mentioned anywhere in our muni code, the position of the city has been that they are prohibited. And so our current process has been that we will get a complaint from the member of the public, usually through code enforcement, and code enforcement will investigate the issue, determine whether a home is being used as a short-term rental. They will then forward the request to the city attorney's office, and our office will prepare a cease and desist letter to that property owner that's on the tax roll. That letter typically just essentially states that they shall cease and desist from using the home as an STR because they are prohibited in the city. And 99% of the time, the property owner will reach out to our office to confirm. Many of them do not know that they are prohibited because, again, they are highly advertised in the city. And typically that ends the issue. We have not had a situation where we'd had to send out more than one cease and desist letter to one property owner. I did look at just the history of how many letters we've sent out in the past 6 years, and we've sent out 22 letters. At the height was in 2020, where we sent out 10 letters. However, that number has decreased substantially as the years have passed. In the last 3 years, we've sent out 1 letter per year. And so, to me, generally speaking, I don't think that the issue is as big as it's portrayed. However, those letters have served its purpose because when we send them out, we don't hear back from those property owners. So in terms of the ordinance itself, the following slide gives you an overview of all the sections of the ordinance. I prepared the draft ordinance based on just a survey of top 10 cities in the state of California, survey cities, and I picked out the requirements that I saw were most relevant or prevalent throughout those ordinances. So generally speaking, those cities do require a permit. They have a permit that expires and is able to be renewed. There are regulations for the STR itself. There are requirements of the operator that seeks that permit. There's an enforcement mechanism. There are fees attached to the STR permit because the STR permit will require that staff investigate, ensuring that the applicant meets all the regulations of the ordinance, including going out to the property and ensuring that it's up to code. And finally, there will be an appeal process, just like we have for any other permit with the city. If the permit is denied or revoked, we would have a process for appealing that. So in terms of the permit requirement, again, the permit would require an application. The application would be available for residential dwelling units, which are single-family homes, and residential development projects, such as apartments and condominiums. You will see in your packet at the 515 meeting that the ordinance has a matrix for apartments and condos. And basically what we did is that we capped 20% of those units in any given building structure would be able to obtain an STR permit. So if you have an apartment complex that has 10 units, 2 of those units would be available to use an STR permit or would be able to apply. And the matrix, it expands as more units are part of the structure. You will also notice that the STR permit excludes ADUs and junior ADUs, and that's actually state law. The state does not allow for cities to issue STR permits to ADUs and junior ADUs. And the thinking process behind that is because of our housing crisis in the state of California. So the state would prefer that those homes, those units, be used as month-to-month or long-term leases as opposed to less than 30 days. So that's why we didn't include junior ADUs and ADUs. We also excluded deed-restricted affordable housing units for the same reason that those are limited to providing long-term housing for affordable housing. We also excluded special group housing residents such as group homes and foster homes, basically youth that live in the foster care system, and single room occupancy. The application will also include a requirement that there be a local emergency contact person that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that staff can reach out whenever there's an issue with the property. We will require a consent from the property owner. There could be situations where the operator that seeks the permit is not the property owner. So we would ask for a notarized document from the property owner that they are allowing the operator to move forward in using their property as an STR. They can't have any active, pending, or code enforcement actions or fees. The operator will be responsible for confirming that if they live in an HOA, the HOA allows the STR use in the property, and the operator will indemnify the city, and we will include that language in the application. So as I mentioned before, the application process will require that the city send out an inspector, probably code enforcement, to the property itself to ensure that it meets all conditions, that there's no hazardous or unsafe issues. And so during that process, if there are pending issues that where the operator does not meet all the regulations, the operator will be given an additional 45 days to review, meet all the regs, and ultimately get the STR permit. And we will also, of course, require that they obtain a business tax certificate.
Mr. Burns.
So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the expiration and renewal of the STR permit. What's been proposed is a permit that's valid for 1 year. It is not transferable or assigned. It does not run with the land. Thus, if there's a sale of the property, then that new owner would need to come back in and ask for a new permit. The permits would need to be renewed annually. That's assumed that it would be renewed as long as that owner is still in good compliance and is maintaining the standards that we've set. A reinspection may be required. Many cities require inspection 3 to 5 years, so we want to include that opportunity for a reinspection. Also, if the operator accumulates 2 or more citations within a 12-month period, then they would not be able to apply for a new permit for a year. So it's kind of a penalty. So if we don't have a good actor that's managing that property, we want the ability that the penalty is then they can have a permit that next year. The advertisements for the city, they'll have to include the STR permit number and expiration date. So that's one way to validate that the STRs actually have a city permit. It'll also include the max number of occupants. What we have proposed is two individuals per bedroom, not including anyone that's 12 or younger. So it would be basically adults that would be included in that, 2 per bedroom. All STRs, just like any other property, would have to comply with the Bakersfield municipal codes. That includes, noise, loud and unruly events, litter, solid waste, materials, any other relying issue that we apply to other projects. So if it's no different than a month-to-month rental. The STR should include, say, the max number of occupants and the other information that's on the application, like number of bedrooms, any information regarding that property and that rental. And any violation shall be resolved immediately with the city. Now, it's the intent that the management company, and there is a RFP that's out currently, that management company who's handling the RFPs and the permits for us, they would send initial notices. So if there was a violation or if there's an issue, they would attempt to do it administratively. And then if they're not receiving results, then it would roll to code enforcement. Our remedy then would be either an admin citation or potentially work with the attorney's office for a potential suit if it's that egregious. Some of the other items that would be required would be proof of liability insurance. What's currently requested is $1 million liability insurance, and that's a homeowner's liability insurance. It's not renter's insurance. It's for that home, so there's insurance there. And that the STR, the owner would have to pay the TOT of the 12% like any other hotel-type use would require. I talked about the violations of any part of the ordinance already and our enforcement. What would include is anyone that's basically providing us false information. If you're going to not provide us information, then that's ability to not issue that permit. We want to make sure that those that are good actors or good property owners, that they have that opportunity, but those that are not, that we have the ability to address those. And any that attempt to advertise before they are permitted, also, that would be considered a violation. And I talked about earlier, violations are subject to our Chapter 140. So we do have the ability to do criminal or civil actions, which would be a misdemeanor citation. I would expect that this type of citation would be more of an admin citation, not a misdemeanor. With that, a future fee would come forward. Again, we're in our RFP process right now on our operator. We need to understand what those operator costs are, and we are requiring an inspection of each one of these particular units. So once we develop that fee recovery mechanism, then we would come back at a future meeting, most likely August, to bring back the actual fees for the STRs. And the appeal would go to the city manager's office. No different than other appeals that we have with the city. For instance, a code enforcement violation, they also go to the city manager's office. With that, staff's recommendation is to receive and file this report and also to approve the first reading of the ordinance that's on the 5:15 meeting agenda. And staff's here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Ms. King, does anyone have further comments before we go to council?
No, Your.
Mr. Clegg?
I don't.
Thank you, Mayor. No.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. One of the speakers mentioned, we need to supervise and regulate these, and that's the whole idea. Is up to this point, we don't have a mechanism to supervise or regulate them, and so this ordinance would give us that ability. Also, I received a constituent interest, and the comment was collecting and paying the tax would be a huge burden. It would be another thing if Airbnb had to collect and remit on our behalf. Is that the idea? Is that the tax is paid through the Airbnb type, or how's that actually going to work? Do you know?
Councilmember Smith, we left the language broad enough so that we have the option of either the individual operator paying the fee directly to the city or paying it through the Airbnb. But I think the preference was for them to just pay the city directly. But either way, we have the options.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. First and foremost, thank you to my constituents and neighbors and friends for many years in Westchester. You can see why Westchester is such a beautiful and special neighborhood with residents like you all who care enough to be here. And Ms. Walters is also here, and very active Westchester resident as well. So thank you so much for being with us this evening and expressing those concerns. I just wanted to echo the point that Councilmember Smith made in that, the whole point of this is to address the current issue, and that is that currently in the city of Bakersfield, short-term vacation rentals are prohibited. They are prohibited. They're not allowed. And yet, we continue to see these vacation rentals pop up in neighborhoods, and we continue to see issues that come about. And this was a referral that I made 6 years ago because of the reality that for the previous 4 years, there had been chronic issues in various different parts of my ward, in Ward 2. Not just Westchester, but other parts of the ward. And so there is a issue. There's a concern that some residents have that a prohibited use continues to exist, and that there is no proactive effort on behalf of the city to resolve those issues. It's all complaint driven. And so really what that does, then it creates this very awkward and I think antithetical framework right? Antithetical to building community. Somebody mentioned the need to build community. Having neighbors policing other neighbors does not help us build community. In fact, it brings people, tears people apart. And so we need to develop a framework. I think out of the top 10 cities, we're the only ones that prohibit Airbnbs. Is that correct?
I think only Oakland doesn't allow it.
Only Oakland, okay. I did have another question regarding the same question that Councilmember Smith made regarding the TOT collection. I noticed in other ordinances in other cities that they actually just required the platform to collect the TOT. My recommendation is that we include that in our language, that we just strengthen this ordinance from the get-go and requiring these platforms to collect TOT on behalf of the owners, not make it vague. That way, you know, from the start, it's strengthened and we can collect that. And I think it's my sense that those platforms are in a much stronger position to collect the TOT. And then the other question, I had a community member reach out concerned about the liability insurance requirement. I understand this is also something that many other cities require. We set the liability insurance at $1 million. But I'd like us to reduce that to $500,000. I think that within our survey, we found that there was a range of caps. Is that right?
Yes, Councilmember Gonzalez, the range was between 500,000 and $1 million.
Okay. Then if my colleagues don't mind, I'd like for staff to revise that for our ordinance discussion tonight at 5:15. I'll pull the item tonight. But thank you so much to the staff. Thank you to many of the community members, the Bakersfield Association of Realtors, for their collaborative effort to make this ordinance workable. And thank you to all the community members as well for being here this evening.
Thank you. Councilmember Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have flip-flopped on this issue a couple times, so and I still have some questions. So, to the point that some of the people in Westchester point out, it seems to them that there's an inordinate amount of these Airbnbs in their neighborhood. And so my question is, do any cities have restrictions on the number of Airbnbs that can be in any one particular neighborhood? And are we considering doing any of that?
Councilmember Coleman, there were cities that restricted Airbnbs to certain neighborhoods. There were cities that had a cap on the number of STR permits, essentially because they are high tourist destinations. So, for example, Long Beach has a limit of 800 STR permits, and they have a smaller limit around the coastal area. Other cities did not have a limit on the STR permit. However, they required that the property owner be present in the home when they were renting it out. So that seemed a little awkward to put into the ordinance, so I didn't include that. Other cities limited the number of days they could rent it out on an annual basis, so 4 months out of the year. So there was a variation. And we took the position of just leaving it as broad as possible with the understanding that we could always narrow it down if that's what the council wants.
Okay. On the matter of insurance, I got the same call, maybe not from the same person, but regarding the amount of insurance. And Councilmember Gonzalez mentioned a $500,000 number, which is what the city of San Francisco requires. And if they can, they can get away with it there, we should be able to live with it here. So I guess I wouldn't object to that. Although, just to the record, I inquired about it, and the cost of $1 million liability insurance policy would be about $800 a year. So we're not talking breaking the bank. So, but I think that we should consider it possibly reducing that number if it's going to make a difference. So if somebody could research the difference, that would be awesome. And then the other question was, you're talking about getting a third-party contractor kind of administer it. And I think we've all kind of talked to those companies before. You know, we talked about having a maximum number of people per room and that kind of thing. Would our contractor be checking the websites for what people are actually advertising and comparing them to what's allowed in that particular city, our city?
Councilman Coleman, that would be part of the contract. They should be managing those ads, so however they've been registered. And also we'll do a inspection. So we will also go out there and verify, is that a 3-bedroom house? Is it a 4-bedroom house? And that's what that ad should show.
And so you guys are going to be doing the inspection, not the third-party people?
That would be correct.
Okay. Because that was another question, because the language was a little vague and maybe misunderstood by some people, that we were going to have a third party that was going to be contracted to do all this, including inspections. And we're not doing that.
Our intent is for city staff to do the inspection, but have a private company that knows how to data mine this information and handle all that other aspects of it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't think I have any further questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Coleman. Mr. Burns, you mentioned under enforcement that administrative citations could be issued. How do you envision that working? Would that be on a complaint basis if there's an attempt to advertise before permitting? Is there going to be any proactive basis for us?
The details of the rollout really has not been discussed. In a normal scenario, we would give a time frame that, you know, for instance, 2 months to get registered or whatever that number comes down. I would imagine I would be meeting with the city manager to discuss that rollout. And once they exceeded that rollout date, then that potentially could be an admin citation.
Yeah,
Mr. Clegg?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. And Phil's right that in particular for the timeline from, advertisement, permitting to advertisement to occupancy. But to your broader question about proactive versus reactive, actually having a third party who looks at this data and has helped to, typically these providers have managed these types of programs in multiple other cities now for many years, and they've learned the ways to identify red flags much quicker than we will on a complaint basis. So there will be proactive data review, and also it's nice to have another entity that's not a burden on our code enforcement to get those first initial complaints and quickly jump on those. And so we'll have both a proactive approach, we'll have access to lots more data, and again, a fairly quick turnaround on those initial complaints, and then really only those escalated issues that need more in-depth follow-up come to us.
Thank you, Mr. Clegg. Don't see any other requests to speak. We need a receive and file.
Motion to receive and file.
You have a motion, please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Council Members Cor and Arias absent.
Thank you. And seeing that we don't have any further business, we stand adjourned at 4:15.